Drowning. What really happens inside the body? Picture this. It's a gorgeous, perfectly sunny afternoon. Daniel, a 24-year-old guy, is out swimming with some friends. He is completely comfortable in the water. He's laughing, he's relaxed, his heart is beating right on rhythm, and his lungs are exchanging oxygen without him even thinking about it. Absolutely nothing seems unusual, and there is zero sense of danger.
But then, literally in a split second, everything flips. Daniel's foot slips off this hidden drop-off into a much deeper section of the lake, and his head disappears under the surface. Now, his very first instinct is incredibly simple, and it's the exact same one almost all of us would have. He holds his breath. What's absolutely crucial to understand here, though, is that this is not drowning yet. This is simply the body's first line of defense kicking in.
To really wrap our heads around what happens next, we kind of need to look at the baseline. We need to understand the crazy, miraculous mechanics of just a normal breath. Every single time you take a breath in, you are delivering oxygen to roughly 300 million tiny little air sacs inside your lungs called alveoli. Inside every single one of those 300 million sacs, oxygen diffuses into tiny capillaries and carbon dioxide gets pushed out. It's this silent, life-sustaining exchange that happens effortlessly, about 20,000 times every single day. Your body absolutely relies on this microscopic transaction every second. So, what happens when that transaction just abruptly stops?
Well, let's look at this timeline, because it really drives the biological tick-tock of this whole event. At 15 seconds underwater, Daniel is still holding his breath. His oxygen levels actually haven't even dropped all that much yet. But check out what is happening with his carbon dioxide levels here. Every cell in his body is still doing its job, which means they are all still producing CO2. Normally, you just exhale it out, but right now, he can't. So carbon dioxide is just rapidly accumulating in his bloodstream. And here is the truly fascinating, terrifying twist. It's actually this rising carbon dioxide, not the falling oxygen, that creates that overwhelming, burning urge to take a breath.
As that CO2 builds up, we hit a critical threshold deep within the brainstem. We have these specialized sensors called chemoreceptors, and they are basically continuously tasting the chemistry of the blood. And right now, they are detecting an absolute perfect storm: rising carbon dioxide, falling pH levels, and gradually decreasing oxygen. These receptors just slam the panic button. They sound a massive, desperate physiological alarm, and the brain screams, "Breathe!" Daniel is fighting the urge with everything he's got, but around that 30 to 60 second mark, his chest starts contracting completely on its own. His diaphragm spasms powerfully. These are involuntary, totally unbearable attempts to inhale. His mind is fighting it, but his body, it simply can't anymore. Eventually, the urge wins. He gasps, and the instant he does, water rushes right into his mouth. But Daniel's airway senses this foreign liquid immediately. Tiny little receptors in his larynx detect the water, and the body initiates this dramatic split-second defense mechanism to protect the lungs. The vocal cords violently snap shut. This reflex is called a laryngospasm. And man, it is a tragic irony. The body is desperately trying to save itself by sealing off the airway to keep the lungs from flooding. But because that airway is now clamped completely shut, air can't get in either.
Think of it like this. It brilliantly illustrates the horrific reality of that moment. Imagine standing outside a locked room during a massive fire. The heavy door is locked to keep the fire out. And hey, it works. The fire cannot get in. But because the door is locked tight, the firefighters can't get in to save the people inside either. That is exactly what a laryngospasm does. The sealed vocal cords successfully block the water for sure, but they completely block the oxygen. So Daniel's body is now actively suffocating, even though he is literally surrounded by water.
As the seconds bleed away, whatever tiny bit of oxygen was already stored in his lungs gets entirely used up. The blood that's still circulating through his body is carrying less and less oxygen. And no organ suffers from this starvation faster or more dramatically than the brain. Look at this wild imbalance here. The human brain makes up only about 2% of our total body weight, yet it demands a massive 20% of the body's oxygen supply. It is an absolute energy hog, making it incredibly vulnerable to even a slight interruption in its fuel source. So, the crucial question is, what happens next as that oxygen-starved blood hits the brain? We see a rapid cascading neurological breakdown. Step 1. The neurons simply cannot produce enough ATP, which is basically the cell's energy currency. Step 2. Without that energy, the brain's electrical activity just becomes utterly disorganized. Step 3. Judgment severely deteriorates. Vision starts narrowing down into a tunnel. Profound confusion sets in, and the victim becomes totally uncoordinated, unable to effectively fight the water. And finally, that sheer, visceral panic of suffocation gives way to a very dark, heavy exhaustion.
Section 1. The defense fails. Water reaches the lungs.
Right, so we now reach a really grim turning point. As the oxygen deprivation becomes profound, the muscles controlling Daniel's vocal cords just get too fatigued. They give out. The laryngospasm breaks, the airway falls wide open, and water finally, truly rushes deep into the lungs. Most people think this happens the second someone goes under, but as we've just seen, it's actually a much later stage in this desperate battle. And here, that rushing water hits those 300 million tiny alveoli we talked about earlier. Those sacs were meticulously designed for air, not water. Normally, they're kept propped open by a thin protective coating called surfactant. But the lake water, it washes that crucial surfactant right away. Without it, the microscopic alveoli just cave in on themselves. Boom, they collapse. This widespread collapse is called atelectasis, and it means the lungs are now physically losing their ability to exchange gases, even if you were somehow pump air back in.
Which brings us to the ultimate physiological failure. Because the lungs are totally compromised and there's zero new oxygen coming in, the blood leaving the lungs is dangerously depleted. The heart, which is a muscle itself, has been pumping frantically this entire time, running on pure adrenaline. But now it's being fed this oxygen-starved blood. The heart muscle starts to suffer. Electrical instability kicks in, the heart rate slows way down, chaotic rhythms start appearing, and eventually, the heart stops entirely. But I really want you to take note of a vital distinction here. The heart didn't stop because of the water. It stopped because of prolonged, profound oxygen deprivation, leading straight to cardiac arrest.
Section 2. The rescue, a race against time.
Okay, the narrative shifts drastically the moment Daniel is pulled from the water. He's unconscious, bluish, and his skin is cool. The clock is absolutely screaming right now. This is a race against time because permanent brain injury can begin within just minutes of complete oxygen deprivation. The longer he goes without circulation and oxygen, the higher the risk that the Daniel who went into the water won't be the Daniel who comes out. And this dictates exactly how rescuers have to react. Notice the massive difference here between drowning and, say, a standard heart attack. Most typical cardiac arrests start with a primary heart problem, like a blocked pipe, right? But drowning begins as a breathing problem. The heart only stopped because it literally ran out of air. Therefore, the absolute #1 priority is oxygenation. Step 1, open the airway. Step 2, provide rescue breaths to get oxygen back into the system immediately. Step 3, begin chest compressions if there's no pulse. Every single second that oxygen delivery is restored vastly improves his chance of survival.
Now, surviving the edge of the lake is an incredible victory, absolutely. But the battle is far from over. If Daniel's pulse is restored and he's rushed to the hospital, the medical team has a whole new set of problems to manage. They aren't just treating the initial lack of oxygen, they're monitoring the fallout. Remember those collapsed, damaged alveoli? Yeah, they often become super inflamed and leaky. Fluid can actually accumulate in the lungs well after the event. So Daniel is going to need supplemental oxygen, continuous monitoring of his breathing, chest imaging to track any swelling, the whole shebang. The hospital team has to meticulously support his body while it tries to repair all that extensive cellular damage.
Now that we actually understand the true biology of this, we really need to shatter an incredibly dangerous cultural myth. Just look at this comparison. Movies have completely trained us to look for thrashing, screaming, and arms waving wildly around. Hollywood makes drowning loud. But real drowning, it is terrifyingly silent. Just think back to the physiology for a second. A person desperately struggling to keep their airway barely above the surface literally cannot spare enough breath to shout for help. They're hyperventilating, just trying to pull in air, and their body is dedicating all of its energy just to staying upright. If you're looking for a loud movie spectacle, you will completely miss someone silently suffocating just a few feet away from you.
And hey, that brings us to another pervasive myth you've probably seen popping up on social media: dry drowning. It's this terrifying idea that a kid could swallow a little water at the pool, seem totally fine, and then suddenly dry drown in their bed 3 days later without any warning. Well, medical professionals really want you to know that this term is entirely outdated and highly misleading. There is no mysterious, out-of-nowhere delayed drowning. Yes, people can absolutely develop severe respiratory complications hours or even days after a water incident, but those complications, like that fluid accumulation we just talked about, are the direct result of a physical lung injury sustained during a very noticeable struggle in the water. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
So, we are left to look at the entire picture of this terrifying cascade. It starts with a simple slip and it ends with cellular starvation. The brain fights to breathe, the airway fights to protect the lungs, the alveoli collapse, and the heart struggles in the dark. It really begs a profound question about human fragility. Is drowning truly a water problem, or is it, at its absolute core, just the ultimate biological race against oxygen deprivation?
It's a pretty stark reminder of the delicate, moment-by-moment chemical balance that keeps us alive, and how quickly our body's own defense mechanisms can sometimes become the very thing that seals our fate.